Hello, welcome everyone. We are so excited to have you here today at our first info session for EV-friendly towns. I'm just going to give our participants another minute or two to join. So just bear with me. Okay, I thought we'd have a couple more entering. We'll just give them one more minute and then we'll get started.
Sure. Do you mind just turning it up so I can hear as well? Thank you.
Elena needs to just let me in.
Oh, you're in, but you might mute yourself if you don't mind.
Yep, there we go.
All right, everyone, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're, as I said, excited to get started. So my name is Alina Dini. I am Head of Energy and Infrastructure at the Electric Vehicle Council and am overseeing EV-friendly towns on behalf of the team. We also have with us Julie Del Vecchio, the EVC's CEO. So welcome, Julie, and hello. And Umair Afzal, who's been overseeing the program as the program manager. We're really happy to have you all on the call. Can I just invite anyone who would like to feel free to come off camera and say hello just quickly. Feel free to if you like to. If you prefer not to, that's also okay. We'll also just get started here with a very quick acknowledgement of country. So just wanted to say I am calling in from Brisbane. So paying thanks to the Raggara and Turrbal people and respecting the lands on which we come to you from today. I know that many of you are coming from New South Wales. This is where the program's starting. So acknowledging the traditional owners of your land as well. Now, before we get started, I just wanted to also acknowledge that we are recording this session. The purpose of the recording is to make it available after the call for any participants who weren't able to join us. So it will be linked to our website for you to refer to. Also, we will have a second info session next month in September. So if you had any further questions, feel free to attend both. There's obviously no reason why you can't do that, or encourage your colleagues and peers in other councils to do the same. So without further ado, I'll go through. We have a full pack of slides for you. We will PDF it and send it to you after the fact, so it's available for you to refer to. If you have any subsequent questions after the session, feel free to email info@evfriendly.com.au. Also very welcome for you to drop a question into the chat or raise your hand and come off camera to ask a question if you have any. Being that this is a pilot program, we anticipate there's some questions. All right, well, I'll get started. So really quickly, you might know the Electric Vehicle Council is the peak body for transport electrification in Australia. We've been operating for more than 10 years and oversee a portfolio of members that range from passenger vehicles to heavy vehicles, and also include more than 70 value chain participants in the EV sector. And I say value chain participants because it is mostly industry, but we do have stakeholders that are other peak bodies, that are industry representatives, and also universities, for example. So we're a pretty broad representation of the EV sector and proudly advocating on behalf of more electrification. So EV-Friendly Towns is an initiative of the EV Council and is proudly funded by the New South Wales government. We are so thankful to our peers in New South Wales and the government team that work on electric vehicles. They are trusted friends of ours and colleagues whom we have worked with on a number of things. So it's so great to have their support and encouragement on this program. I'd also like to acknowledge Jonza and a couple of councils that have worked on the foundation of this program some months ago. So EV-Friendly Towns came to us. We had similar thinking, so it was a meeting of the minds that we were able to deliver, but it doesn't go without mention that there are councils who have been thinking very hard about tourism, travel through the regions, and making sure that infrastructure is readily available for all Australians so that everyone feels comfortable driving an EV anywhere. So we're really appreciative of that early work. Why this program is important is that we recognize that a number of towns have done great things for EV infrastructure, and they should be commended. And it's not to say that we can commend every single one through this program, but we certainly hope to shine a light on the great work that has been undertaken piloting here in New South Wales in the first instance. So we will hope that this program really draws out each one of your contributions, that we can help provide support where there are gaps, and obviously shine a light in the categories where there are winners. In today's session, we'll overview the program for you. We'll talk about why EV-friendly towns exists, the town eligibility portion, so what we mean by town and sort of what the criteria are, what the minimum charging thresholds are for applicants, what evidence requirements you need, what's in the application form and the submission process, how we'll undertake the assessment, what we'll do about recognizing councils and what you receive as a winner. We'll overview the key dates and obviously have an opportunity for questions. The purpose of this is to help you prepare and feel confident to submit a submission that is strong and compelling. So just quickly, why EV-friendly towns? I've already mentioned it before, but as EV travel expands, and we've had incredible sales in the last few months, sort of, I mean, honestly topping 30% of new car sales in the last 2 months specifically, we want to make sure that EV motorists are comfortable with traveling out of the inner city and out of their homes. And having reliable access to public infrastructure is an important part of that. The second foundational piece of this, of course, is having a visitor experience in areas, specific areas all around New South Wales, and really encouraging motorists to take their EV, travel, see the sights, participate in the local economies, stay overnight even, and make it feel like it doesn't matter what kind of vehicle you're driving, it is a seamless experience. So we'll be looking for in our application effectively a story about what traveling to your EV-friendly town is like. So obviously we have the eligibility criteria, which we'll overview briefly, but we're also looking for supporting documentation to help understand how this program links with tourism, with the charging experience, with what any individual user or participant might experience when they travel into your region. We also will acknowledge that applicants should be really open to applying, even if they have a hesitation to think that they're the best, because the criteria that we'll use to assess are going to consider towns of all sizes and configurations. So it's certainly the case that you should apply if you think you're even close. So at a glance, this is an awards program. It's designed to award winners and to provide recognition. Every application has value. As I mentioned before, if you have an inkling to apply, please do. We will provide some feedback to applicants who have applied and were unsuccessful with a view to enabling the sector as a whole. How the process works is that first we will check the eligibility of your application. First we ask you to check the eligibility of your application, which all of you who are on the call are effectively doing through participating in this process. Then apply. And we'll step you through what that looks like shortly. Then we will confirm your eligibility and ensure your application is complete. So there might be an exchange between our team and yourselves once the applications have arrived in case there is a gap that we can overcome. Then we will undertake an independent assessment. So that means we will review your application against the selection criteria and mark it. Then that application will be provided to an independent judging panel, which we have partly assembled, but haven't revealed the judges yet. That will come later. And the judges will independently assess our recommendations for the leading candidates in each of the categories and then choose the winners. So that won't be undertaken by us, but independently. Then we will announce the winners and award them prizes. We're hoping to make a pretty big deal out of this announcement. So the announcement will include our own promotional communications, as well as communications supported by the New South Wales government. And we are building through the EBC's membership partners that will amplify those messages. So it should be a pretty exciting time, and we've timed it just ahead of the Christmas holidays. So your towns should expect increased visitorship through that period. And as I mentioned before, any applicants who are unsuccessful, we will provide feedback. The feedback will be indicative of what gaps we saw in the application process and where we think assistance might be useful for next year. So we intend to run the program annually, and our hope, of course, is to expand it over time. So before you start, are you ready to apply? Just a few things to check. Check that you're applying on behalf of a New South Wales town. So any Victorians on the call, sorry, not for you this year. You should check whether your town is considered tiny, small, or top. So we've borrowed those category names and configurations from the New South Wales Tourism Awards. We'll define them in a moment, but just so you understand, it relates to the population size of your town, and the intention here is to recognize towns of all shapes and sizes. Make sure your town meets the minimum public charging threshold for the category. We've set the bar reasonably low this time around, wanting to make sure that we captured a really broad audience. So hopefully you will fulfill those criteria and can provide evidence according to that. And if you are not a council, you'll need support from your council. And I'll explain what that means in a moment, but the type of support we're looking for is just to make sure that the applicant, which could be a community organization, a tourist center, etc., in a particular region, has coordinated with the governing body of that region to say it's okay to apply and be subject to public promotion. Any questions so far? I'll just pause for a moment. There's a bit more info to get through, I think. All right. So now we'll talk about the eligibility criteria and overview them for you. So as I mentioned before, an applicant must be an organization, an independent entity, or it can be a council. The reason why we've chosen a town rather than a council for this program is because councils are often comprised of a number of towns. And so it might be the case that one mini region is advocating for, seeking to, or undertaking more tourist-related infrastructure development than another. It also might be the case that a particular council wants to shine a light on a region in their council by way of a town for any particular reason. And so we have provided that particular distinction in this program for that reason. We mentioned the importance of having the support of your council. So we've asked for a letter. It can be an email. We have some more detail in the application guidelines, but some kind of an endorsement to say that it's okay for you to be applying on their behalf. I mentioned the categories of eligibility of tiny, small, and top. You can see there the designation around population. We ask for confirmation of your population related to an official document. So whether you have something in a council paper or you can provide reference to the most recent census, not the one you're doing tonight, but the one that was released before. So those are the key eligibility criteria. And it goes without saying, of course, again, you must be in New South Wales. Sorry, I've just seen a question in the chat. I'll come back to that question after I finish the slide. In terms of the qualifiers here, we've put out some additional detail and how we'll assess the criteria that I've just mentioned before. This is how it appears in the application. We've just pasted it for you to help with familiarity, so you can sort of note where in the application you'll see that information and how it is to be provided. I'll just have a look at the question in the chat now. The question is, we roll out our EV charging as a 3-council project, Waverley, Woollahra, and Randwick. Does this mean it's okay to apply as one town for our region? It's a good question. I think our preference is that each town apply separately. But on this particular case, I might take that one offline and come back to you specifically, Ella. We hadn't considered where there might be joint organizations applying and how that might be evaluated. So let me think on that, confer with the team, and come back to you specifically. It's a good question. We'll provide the answer to everyone as well, so that if it comes up again, you're aware. All right, I'll keep moving. Minimum charging thresholds. So we have distinguished these relative to the size of the applicant per the tiny, small, and top categories. So if you're a tiny town, less than 1,500 personnel, we ask that you have at least one publicly available AC or DC charger. Pretty straightforward. If you're a small town, so between 1,500 and 5,000 people, you must have at least one publicly available AC charger with power output greater than 7 kilowatts and one publicly available DC charger with a power output of greater than 20 kilowatts. For top towns which are greater than 5,000 people, you must have at least 2 publicly available AC chargers with power output of greater than 7 kilowatts and 2 publicly available DC chargers with power output of greater than 20 kilowatts. Now, we know for some of you this is easy, and we know for others of you, you might not quite be there. The point of the exercise is to have a minimum threshold of acceptance, and this is what we have landed on. If you are over and above this, that's fine. Please apply and just provide detail of what you can. Umair, did you want to speak to any of the charging threshold criteria around the green dot points at the bottom and anything else I might have missed?
Thanks, Alina. I think you have explained the power output ratings and the categories of the towns very well. Just one thing that I would like to add here is for the AC charges to be counted, that there should be at least one socket or plug which should be type 2 AC Manicus. And for the DC chargers, our charger would be only counted if it has at least one CCS2 plug or socket. And those counted chargers would be then considered for the minimum charging threshold criteria. And for any additional charges, please feel free to provide the details. And it would be great if you could also provide the essential requirement and evidence criteria for those charges as well for additional points. But for the charges which are included in the minimum charging threshold, the essential requirements, which will be detailed in the next slides, would be important. Thank you.
Thanks, Umair. Just another, sorry, excuse me for interrupting. We also wanted to just overview what would be the combination of details that makes for a strong application. So we've noted that there are technical requirements that you need to follow. Absolutely, please do follow those. But there are attributes around the infrastructure as well that we want you to consider and report back to us on. So what they relate to are how easy it is to find the charger. That it's reliable, accessible, and meets the need of people who are looking for it. That people, when they access the charger, they want to stay, and we use the word spend because the intention here is to invest in the local economy. So you're a tourist, right? You're going to the Big Banana and you want to plug in and also take your kids for a ride and get some treats. Or you're going to the beach and you might just stop at a pub along the way and have a couple of drinks and enjoy the sunset. Whatever the narrative is, you let us know. The intention here is really to contribute. We also want to make sure that travelers feel welcome in your community so they're aware of it. For example, your infrastructure is listed on PlugShare or other charging apps that can make it visible digitally. We also would love to hear about whether there are signage that visitors can see, whether it's en route to the charger or just in front of it. Just what sort of accommodations are you making to welcome visitors? And we also would love to hear about how your town is planning for infrastructure. So thinking about the visitor experience as a whole, perhaps you've mentioned EV charging in a recent newsletter, or as I mentioned, you have had a ride and drive day or a local community association of EV enthusiasts come through. Whatever that might look like that helps illustrate that this is more than just infrastructure in the ground is really, really interesting to us. So there's some assessment criteria here. As you can tell by the size of the table, it's all very detailed. We'll be looking for compliance with evidence and support. So we've listed the essential details around the charging infrastructure and what we're seeking for you to provide. In terms of fulfilling the criteria that we've asked for, I'll just call it a couple of examples without reading them in great detail, but very much so welcome questions. So we ask for a PlugShare link. We assume that your infrastructure, if it's publicly available, has been listed on one of the more popular EV infrastructure apps. If you could let us know about that, that also helps inform the operational quality or reliability of the charger. So either through comments or a plug score. We're also looking for a description from you around the type of plug itself. So details around whatever plug or socket you have, what configuration it is by way of standard, that detail is necessary. In terms of the operations and maintenance, we recognize it might be difficult for you to obtain an asset, a register, or a maintenance schedule, depending on who the applicant is. So we're seeking a declaration from you to assert that there is a plan to maintain the charger, or that you're aware of the responsible party, whether it be the CPO or the organization that has installed the equipment, to make sure that it is regularly working and that there are no issues, as well as proof that there is mobile connectivity, obviously, because it's necessary for visitors to be able to use their apps more often than not, and if not, perhaps a workaround. We're also interested in knowing what visitor services are nearby. So if you can provide a map or photos of amenities that are approximate to the charger. So things like toilets, cafes, restaurants, the beach, I mentioned the Big Banana just because it's a place that I visited fairly recently, but that kind of tourist park, um, tourist accommodation, wineries, you name it, whatever sounds like something that you want to draw visitors to, that works for us. I have a really great memory of doing a road trip with my family through New South Wales and stopping at a park with a playground that was adjacent to Chargers, and that was a welcome change from a McDonald's, which is where a lot of the other ones were located. So those kinds of examples are really great. We also are interested in hearing about the site accessibility and safety. So infrastructure that supports that. So things like lights, any kind of special accommodation for disability or signage, as I mentioned earlier. So those are kinds of things that we would like to see as well. I'd just like to note Zach's comment around sort of wanting clarification similar to Ella. Zach, I'll also make sure to come back to you separately and share with the group our thinking on that so that we have clarification. One last piece of evidence via the compliance table. This is not essential, but is desirable. We want to hear a little bit around what's happening in your region as it relates to your investment in EV infrastructure and climate. So anything you can tell us about what's going on, climate plans, dedicated staff or staff who are trained to work on EVs, any particular programs, events, policies, supportive politicians, whatever it might be, anything that you think is worthy of adding to your application, we'll have a look at. Just again, going back to the comment around what does good look like, we want to make sure that you've heard from us that the evidence tells the story around the experience. So it is absolutely the case that complying with the requirements of the program is the job one. But we're also open to hearing about what kind of support you have for it in a way that sort of tells a narrative. So I've provided a couple of examples of claims you might list on your application, such as, I'll just list the middle one, visitors are welcomed by local business. We would probably agree with you if we read that with a list of businesses, but it would be really helpful to have photos, web pages, promotional information, anything that helps us imagine ourselves there. Otherwise, we'll be jumping on Google and searching for those things anyway. So if you can help sort of fill in the gaps, that's really useful. And equally, if you have a good relationship with your CPO or equipment provider that can help validate some of the questions we have about charger reliability, safety, and accessibility, feel free to lean on them. I mean, they are all very much invested in the success of EV infrastructure and this program. So we would be really happy to have any kind of support from them via you and your applicants. So in the case of this application, we recommend starting right away. Pull your pieces together, ask questions if you have them, and quality items beat quantity. Just noting one more question from the room, Ella. When it comes to photos of visitor services, e.g. toilets, how many photos are sufficient for this requirement? Do we need to provide the support for every charger in our area? Good question. I think for us, it really depends on your circumstance. So I imagine if you're a larger town and you have, let's say, 10 charging locations, I would select a handful that you think are illustrative of the kind of experience a visitor would have when coming to your region, rather than every single one. I think that's a bit onerous. We'll provide that clarification in writing as well to yourself and everyone else and update the FAQs so that's clear. It's a good question. We want to strike a balance between being able to validate a visitor experience and providing an onerous process that no one wants to do. So we will we'll make sure that we steer away from onerous. I noted another series of questions here. I'll pause on those and go through the presentation a bit further, and then we'll come back to some more questions in a moment. We have two merit criteria that we'll just discuss here. So merit criterion A involves EV and tourism integration. So some of the questions we've listed that we'll ask for your response on the application include, where can visitors find EV charging information? So are they on your council websites? Could you access the visitor center and find out that the staff there are knowledgeable about where to charge? Do you have maps that include EV charging that you hand out to people as they pass through town? Is there an app or an experience, a digital experience that a visitor might go through and see your equipment or similar equipment featured? We'd love to hear about that. Tourism promotion campaigns that reference EV travel. So there've been quite a few really great programs we've seen around EV road trips and that sort of activity, or events like the AIVA just did a couple of drive days. They do them regularly, touring around areas. Our family's partaken in a few. If there's anything like that that you can share, or itineraries, anything that you think will contribute to the narrative, feel free to include. Equally, partnerships with businesses or operators that support EV travelers. So, for example, Tesla for a long time have had a destination program where they have worked with tourist operators to include infrastructure in key locations. If you've partnered with Tesla on this, we'd love to know. Merit criterion B. So any improvement plans you have over the next 24 months, part of our consideration will be not only about what you have done, but what you're planning to do next. So anything you'd like to tell us about upgrades. One thing we're hearing a lot about, especially in regions that are highly trafficked in high travel periods, over Christmas holidays or Easter holidays, are where chargers were utilized highly in those periods, and those sites are looking to expand. So if you've had 2 and you're upgrading to 4 because it was incredible over Easter, let us know. Anything you haven't quite done but you're hoping to do or seeking approval on, as I said, perhaps like additional signage or upgrades to include disability accommodation, let us know. Anything you're looking to do to improve reliability or the user experience over time, perhaps you've recognized your maintenance schedule isn't sufficient to manage the equipment, which often can be first generation. We get it. Perhaps you're looking to upgrade plugs because some standards that have existed aren't servicing the types of vehicles that are coming through as regularly, i.e. CHAdeMO, let us know, or anything else you think that might be relevant. I'll just pause there for a moment and go back to the chat. One question is, do councils need to own and operate the chargers, or can we apply based on the public charging infrastructure we have helped deliver through partnerships? No, you do not need to own and operate the chargers. Your partnerships are completely valid and welcome. Good question. We'll note that in our update. Number 2, would you recommend circulating this opportunity to local businesses through the Council of Business newsletter so they consider applying directly? Yes. We are looking to get the word out far and wide. We recognize that if businesses and local tourist operators are seeking to be recognized, they can invite council to support their application. We'll have a clarification just around which kind of entity can apply, because I know that that's a question around whether it can be a business or if it must be another type of entity. We will note that and come back to you. Will there be a short list? Any bragging rights is good news for all news and social media. At the moment, we've limited the award program to tiny, small, and top, in line with the New South Wales program. We have also given the judging panel first right of refusal for any other commendations. So we have not decided yet whether a short list or a next best list will be provided to the public once the program is complete. We really like the idea of this, but we're also not sure how many and what type of applicants we might get. So we could only get 3. We could get 300. we really don't know. So we're leaving that element open, but very much welcome suggestions, ideas, and thoughts around it, because obviously we love for everyone, or as many people as possible, to be recognized. I'll go to this last question and then continue the presentation. The question is, we have many caravan parks, hotels, and other accommodation facilities that have level 2 charging available for their patrons. While these are not publicly available, this type of behind the gate EV charging also supports the visitor economy. Can these behind the gate charging locations be used to support the application? I'll double check with the team on this. I think the minimum eligibility criteria is that there is at least some public charging available as a default, and then anything above that, extra brownie bonus points. So in this case, we absolutely want to see hotel accommodation providing infrastructure, and think that is a merit criterion that is worthy of mentioning. We had a lot of debate about this in establishing the program, but I'm pretty sure where we landed was minimum criteria for public charging, job 1, accommodation charging, second order priority, just for this particular round. But I'll just check with Umair to see if I've got that right. Umair, is that right? We had hotel accommodation charging is not fulfilling the eligibility criteria in the first instance. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. And but those charges could be provided as additional charges for the application purposes, and it could provide you extra points. So it would be based on the judging panel's judging, of course, but we understand those semi-public charges also contribute towards the visitor economy, and we would like to acknowledge them as such, whilst also acknowledging that they are not fully public charges and the semi-public charges. So for the charges which are going to meet the minimum charging threshold criteria, they need to be absolutely fully public charges. Thanks very much.
Yeah, that's right. So we'll, so yes, but, or sorry, no, but is the answer to your question, Zach, and we'll provide that in writing after the fact for you to refer to. All right, continuing on. So I wanted to share an illustrative example of what an application could look like. This is not a complete application. This is not saying that we have chosen a winner. It actually is just the case that I mentioned a New South Wales road trip I went on. I went through my photos and tried to find an example case that would help explain what we're looking for with a couple of areas of explanation. So Thrumster, am I saying that right? Thrumster is a town in the Port Macquarie Hastings Council area. So this provides an illustrative example of where a town could be an applicant, even though the council is Port Macquarie. Now, Port Macquarie could also be the applicant and could highlight a town in its region. But if the people of Thrumster said, we want to be the most EV-friendly tourist town in this council area or in New South Wales, get yourselves together and do that. Absolutely. So this is an example of why we've chosen towns, and I've put it on a map so that it's clear for everyone. I've got a photo here of the charger. Apologies for the mirror being cut off a little bit, but just to show how it's set up. Obviously, we'd want some more details around its proximity to, in this case, it was a service station, and there was some picnic tables with shade, and lots of parking in areas you could walk and rest. There's the PlugShare location and score. We prefer the link, but there's a picture for you. And in this particular case, having done a quick census check of the population of Thrumster, we can see that it is a small town. So that is the category it would fit in. So the last thing I'll just note is in terms of the planning and leadership, a couple of quick searches helped me identify that there are specific pieces of infrastructure support that the Port Macquarie Council have updated even just as recently as July, looking at infrastructure planning and reliability assessment. So we can see that these are the sort of hallmarks of moving in the direction of good, things that we like to see. So again, an illustrative example. Thrumster is not winning yet. They've got to put in their own application, but just what good could look like. Application process. I'll work through this and then we'll go back to questions. So we've sort of walked through this before, but we'll need you to prepare your documents. We are piloting a program here and are a not-for-profit, and while we have been funded to do this, still at first principles, we're keeping it pretty light touch. What I mean by that is we're asking you to submit your materials by email in a zip drive. So we have pretty clear instructions on the application form around how to do that. If you have any questions or anything is unclear, please reach out anytime. As I said, this is the first time we're doing this, so we recognize it may not be perfect, and we're really happy to help you along the way. So you'll complete your application materials, pop them into a zip folder, and send them to info@evfriendly.com.au no later than the 25th of September of this year, which is just 6 weeks away. We'll issue you an invoice for $220 plus GST, which we'll expect you to pay before, we'll give you a deadline, but just before we nominate a winner. So the intention there is that there is an application fee to cover our time. One application and one zip folder would be really great if you could do that for us so we can process them accordingly. And we have provided naming conventions to help us delineate between what we've asked for in terms of the criteria and what you provide. So that's in section 5.1 of the application, if you could refer to that or let us know if you have any questions. We will acknowledge receipt of the application. As I mentioned earlier, our first port of call will make sure the application is complete and there isn't anything that requires clarification. If there is, we'll come back to you and ask you a question or seek to clarify. We're not going to check your application out because you got something wrong in the first instance. This is everyone's first time doing this, so let's have a fair go. And then we will confirm that you are able to proceed or not if for some reason you are not. We'll let you know our timeframes for assessing reviewing and judging the applications. At the moment, we have indicated November, but we haven't provided a specific date. We will come back and confirm with dates so that you can be made aware. And the winners will be notified confidentially first, and then they will be made public in the subsequent weeks. As we said, we are working really hard to make a big deal out of this. So we hope that you'll be excited by that element. And I mentioned before that we will be marking the applicants against the eligibility criteria and providing some assessments of what we've read and reviewed, but ultimately it will be the judging panel making the decision about who the winner is. We haven't yet revealed who's on the judging panel, but that will be coming up very soon. We'll share that information via social media and through our email accounts so you can be aware as well. It's not a secret, it's just getting firmed. But it is a good assortment of industry organizations, government, and so forth, all with lots of experience, relevance, and interest in what's happening in New South Wales in the EV sector. And then I mentioned the outcome will be announced in time for Christmas holidays, which is the plan here. I will go to questions for a moment. Does the definition of towns extend to areas in Metro Sydney? Yes, it does. We want to see the big cities applying too because you're doing great things and people love to travel to the city. So yes. Is a People's Choice option under consideration? We did consider a People's Choice option. We haven't ruled it out. As I mentioned before, our intention is to let the judging panel do its thing and come up with some recommendations. Depending on the quantum of applicants and the quality, we may be able to extend some of the recognition beyond the top 3 winners, but there will be some questions around what that looks like in terms of both who and how we celebrate those successes and also what kind of awards we can provide. So we'll come back to you with detail around that later. We can't commit at this time. A list of highly commended towns may be a good way to recognize towns. Agree. We will find a way to make sure that every applicant feels good coming out of this process. That's important to us. Okay, moving on now. Completing the application. So we've put together the details here that are required. I'll walk them through. So we'll need your organization details, whoever you are, whatever you might be. We will come back to you around a clarification around if 3 councils partnering or 2 councils partnering will work. We'll also clarify whether businesses can apply with support from their council. So those are 2 points that I'll come back to you on. The town details, obviously, and of course, its size. We'll note that we do require support of the council, so we're looking for like a letter or perhaps an email, but something that says, yes, we support this, recognize it's happening, and are comfortable with being acknowledged if that should eventuate. You've noted all the eligibility criteria, so obviously we expect you to tick that. The merit criteria is also most welcome. I think find a balance between going as far as you can on that and sort of reporting on what you think is really valuable, because we know that your time is precious, but we also want to see what's and celebrate what's happening in the regions and in the cities. We've included a checklist for you so you can tick off things as you complete them and make sure that you've got everything included. But as I mentioned, that eligibility check will occur anyway, so we don't encourage you to skip things, but just know that we'll double check. Please provide your evidence register. So that's photos, materials, links, that sort of thing that we mentioned before, all in the zip drive with the proper naming, just to help us get through it a bit quicker. We're a small team. We're very energetic, but we're small. And obviously your declaration. So that's just you saying everything I've included is to the best of my ability, honest, complete, and representative of what we think is really happening, and all of the information that we could provide is there. If there's anything that's not applicable, a simple N/A for not applicable will do. Feel free to use that information or use that if needed. How to submit. So once you've submitted your application, zip drive an email, info@evfriendly.com.au. At this point in time, there's no portal or form or online system you have to familiarize yourself with, which could be a blessing, could be a bane, I'm not sure, but at least it's simple. So again, everything comes to us in an email, a zip drive. If you have any difficulties, perhaps in real time as you're submitting, technically that can happen. So please let us know. We, in our first year, obviously will be a little bit lenient if there are reasons that you weren't able to attach a file or had an internet outage or whatever might happen. Just let us know. But we will be pretty firm on the deadline, just given that we have sort of compressed timeframes to get this through before Christmas, which is the goal. I'll just remind you once more that there is a fee for applying for EV-friendly towns. $220 is the cost of your application. That covers actually the promotional work that we're doing online. So the intention here is to reallocate that funding toward promoting the program over the course of its time. So some of the time that we're spending now to encourage applicants, as well as once they are awarded, we will be celebrating that through social media platforms with some sponsored ads. So the intention there is really to amplify the message, get it out, and get tourists traveling in their EVs to you. Tips for a strong application. We think start gathering the evidence early. So if you know what's happening in your region, just start compiling it now against the application checklist so it's not a Hail Mary at the end of September. Reach out to the CPOs early that are in your regions. Ask them for help if you think you might need it. Please label all the files clearly. Use the evidence register as it's been prescribed. Show us the experience of the visitor, not just links and details. We really want to hear about what you might do if you go there, and how it connects with the future plans you and your region might have, or your city. And you've attended an information session, so everyone on this call already gets one tick. How good is that? Feel free to come along to the next one if you want to. It'll be very much the same content. We'll have a few updates, I'm sure, but really happy to sort of walk you through this again if it's at all useful. I have put together a list of next steps. A reminder, the application deadline is the 25th of September, which is a Friday. End of day is fine. So 11:59 p.m. works. It doesn't have to be 5 on the dot. Just to remind you, those top 5 steps of things we suggest you do. 1, check your eligibility. If you're eligible, good news, read the application. Download it. It's not too long. I think it's like 4 or 5 pages. Read through it completely. See if you have any further questions. Let us know. Just make sure you understand what's required so that we can help you through the way. Bring the right people together. So you might have to reach out to a couple of stakeholders in your organization or outside to help you compile the information. We recognize that. We have a member call on Thursday, but I am in touch with CPOs almost on a daily basis. They all know about this program and they are on notice to help you out. So if you have any issues there, please let us know. But our hope is that the industry will rally around this program. If you have any evidence gaps, try and figure them out now. Let us know if there's any issues with what you're finding, but hopefully we can fill those gaps quickly and get you over the line. And last but not least, our recommendation is just open a little folder on your computer right now, call it EV-Friendly Towns Application, and start dropping stuff in. It'll make it so much easier come that last week of September. I'm going to go back to questions now. A tiny town could still be within a larger regional council who may have dedicated resources versus a tiny town in a small council. Is a lack of resources master plan seen negatively? No, it's not. We recognize tiny towns, whether they're regional or in the city, are likely to not have some of those features, which is why we've listed them as merit criteria. So they amplify some of the success stories we see, not requirements. We honestly don't know what kind of materials we'll get from tiny towns, so we'll assess them as they come in. That's also why we've opened the door to merit criteria, because it could be the case that we have a number of applicants in the tiny category that all meet the criteria and there's no way to distinguish them. It could also be the case that we have very few. We're not sure what we'll get, so we've tried to open a few doors to filling gaps and see what we can work with there. Next question. For the essential requirement 2, the charger operation and maintenance, if our EVs owned and operated by a third party or provider, we won't essentially have the maintenance plan or SLAs. In that case, do we still need to provide them as essential documents with the application? Yes, we need some kind of evidence that you have your finger on the pulse of what's going on with the equipment that you're applying for. So if you can't contact the installer or the equipment owner or the network provider and ask them for some indication of their maintenance plan, perhaps you have some evidence from the council that it is on the register of assets that they review regularly. We need some kind of indication that this isn't an asset that nobody has their finger on. That's important. That's important for validating that when tourists travel into wherever they may be going, they can guarantee that everything has been done to the best of the ability of the welcoming region to accommodate them. Key dates. So today's the 11th of August. Our next information session is 1 month away, so the 10th of September. As I mentioned before, it'll be very similar to this. That one we're hosting over lunch, so you can bring your lunch and come and listen along. This recording will be made available to you, as will the responses to the questions that have been asked. If you have any further questions, drop them into the chat and they'll get scooped up by that list. As I mentioned, for those of you that have key application level questions, we'll reach out to you as well. If I haven't said it already, your registration for this session assumes that you're open to receiving emails from us with the required information that I just mentioned. So the video link, the PDF of the slides, and the responses to the questions, as well as any future program updates. If you want to opt out of receiving those emails because you've decided not to participate, please just send an email to info@evfriendly.com.au and we'll remove you from the list. Going forward, beyond the second information session, as I mentioned before, keep your eye out on website, socials for any program updates, as well as by email. But we will certainly have some more information coming around the judging panel, the awards, that sort of thing, and we'll be doing regular reminders. The closing of the submissions is again the 25th of September, and we're hoping to make an announcement in November of 2026. We've given ourselves the option of early December, but likely it will be November. Now, what happens if you win? What do you get? So we've got a sort of summary here of what we intend to include for the winners. This is not an exhaustive list. It is also not the end of what we are seeking to achieve, but I'll go through what winners get. So one town will be designated as the most EV-friendly in each category. Again, that's tiny, small, and top. Those winners will be revealed to the winners confidentially ahead of the fact, and then we will issue a media release by the EBC and likely the New South Wales government to promote that. There may also be an event. We're working through the details of that. Again, it is likely to be November. We haven't yet decided whether we'll have honorable mentions, people's choice, or a commendation list to go along with it, but we love that there's interest and people want to be noted even if they haven't won, so we will deeply consider that and come back to you. Winning towns will also receive a discounted 1-year EBC membership. So that's great because we really want you to grow and be part of the community. All successful EV-friendly towns will receive the designation of EV-friendly. So that's bestowed on you for the year. You'll get a badge and some marketing materials. Effectively, we're calling it a digital media kit. So we have been working with the designer that has all of the asset resources that you will need digitally to celebrate your town. So you'll be able to sort of grab and go this kit and slot into it your name, the details of your infrastructure, pictures, for example, so that you can celebrate on social media, in newsletters, on your website, in print materials, and possibly things that we're exploring but we haven't yet landed, maybe a physical sign and a sticker that you can affix to a tourist center window or an EV charger or whatever kind of commendation might suit. We've also looked at banners that you might be able to put on lampposts coming into your town. There's a few restrictions around what can be done with street signs, so we're working through that at the moment, but we really want you to be able to celebrate this digitally and physically. We will profile your town through our social media campaigns, which includes the reach of the EBC, which, as you might know, is quite large. You'll have access to our media team for profiling, so we'll share those profiles with our media advisor and will comprise part of the media release. We will also highlight you in our State of EVs report coming out in 2027. So you'll get a commendation there specifically, and also on Charge at Large, which is our app that you can use to find infrastructure. So we'll make sure there is special mention there. Plus, we have been working with our partners through industry for more types of commendation and recognition, which will be revealed in the coming months. We didn't want to share it all now, but it is certainly underway. So that's really exciting. We mentioned before, staying informed is important. When you get this pack, you'll have links to all of the relevant channels. We have our email address, but we also have social media accounts on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram, where we provide updates on a regular basis. So feel free to connect on those and share them with your network if you know of anyone else who might be a worthy applicant. That is all from me. Now, can I just ask, is there anyone else who has a question they'd like to put in the chat? And if not, before you go, and this is obviously super optional, but we were hoping to take a group photo of the participants on the call to share that we have launched this and possibly share it on socials. If you're open to that, would you come off camera? And if you're not, that's okay. Feel free to come on camera. And if you're not, feel free to stay off camera. But we were just hoping, given it's our inaugural year and we want to get people into the next info session, all the smiling faces of this wonderful community of people shining a light on what's happening and EV tourism in the regions would be amazing. So I am going to let you all finish doing that, and then we'll pause for a minute and sort of smile, because it can be really awkward when you take these sort of, group camera photos and see if we can get a snap. Oh, look at these faces. I'm so excited to see you all. Nice to meet you. Thanks for listening to me. Now, Jessup, are we in a good place for a photo now? Shall I stop sharing my screen? Very good. Can everyone, yeah, Jessup's good. Can we all smile and look like we're so excited about EV-friendly towns? All good, Jessup? Still smiling. Okay, we're good. Thank you so much, everyone. Really appreciate your time today. If there are any other questions, please let me know. And otherwise, we'll look forward to your application. Thank you.